Are you looking for an experience that will grow your teenagers' faith, increase their leadership skills, and teach them the discernment to engage with the world all around them, all while taking them on the adventure of a lifetime? I mean, who isn't looking for that? If your teenager loves fun, adventure, and wants to grow in their faith and leadership this summer, then send them to Excel's Summer Leadership Camp. Excel's Summer Leadership Camp is a 12-day experience for passionate young leaders looking to discover God's truth, to discern wisely, and live wholeheartedly. Your teenager will embark on a transformative journey in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they'll build lasting friendships in the context of community, embark on thrilling adventures like camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and they will receive expert training and certifications in categories like CPR and wilderness first aid. Each aspect of the camp is woven together to help them learn to discover truth, to discern wisely, and take godly action in the context of real-life situations. To learn more or begin an application, go to theexcelcamp.org. That's theexcelcamp.org. Hurry, because summer is just around the corner.
It took me a while. I'd say it took me a good 4 years to really kind of get out of that mindset of my entire identity was wrapped up in being a professional baseball player and this all about me attitude, that the world revolved around me. And it wasn't until probably that I went to grad school to get my MBA at Notre Dame where I began to start kind of opening my eyes to a lot of different things.
Welcome to the Reclamation Podcast, where our goal is to help busy people reclaim good practices for faith and life. Here's your host, Tony Meltenberger.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reclamation Podcast. I'm Tony, and I'm excited to bring you today's conversation with Mike Mathile. Mike is a friend of mine, and we've known each other for over a decade. And in that time period, I've got to learn a little bit about his story that we are going to share with you today. Mike was drafted by the Expos. He had an illustrious baseball career that ended way too soon and eventually moved into the business circle. So now he serves as a business owner and leader. He serves as a Christian businessman. In our conversation, we talk about his Catholic faith, how that plays out in his work. He talks about the tension of being a Christian business owner. He also talks about what it means to work with family. See, Mike's family, the Mathile family, is an incredible force in the Dayton area. They're a philanthropic group of people. They've done so much as leaders for the entire city. It's a great conversation with Mike Mathile. So I hope you enjoy it. If you would, the best compliment you can give me is to leave a review on iTunes or wherever it is you listen to podcasts. It'll help get the word out for future conversations. In the meantime, enjoy my conversation with Mike Mathile. Mike, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you?
Very good. So, Mike, for those of you that for those of you out there who may not know Mike, can you give us a little bit about yourself, kind of the Reader's Digest version of your story?
Well, I'll do my best. So first and foremost, I'm a husband of 27 years. And
wow, congratulations.
I'm a father of four, which you know the four of them. Three of them are in college, one in high school.
Does that feel weird?
It does feel weird. One's graduating this year, so it's you'll see that happens very quickly. I think Connor turned 13 yesterday, right?
13 yesterday. It's it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it goes fast. So I'm a Catholic man, been through Catholic schools my whole life, and proud and honored to be so, and businessman. I'm a reformed professional athlete, where I probably learned more after I've been out of athletics than before. So
now I've never heard that term before. Reformed professional athlete. What is that?
Yeah.
Give some links to that.
Yeah. I think professional athletes, especially in today's society, have this kind of it's all about me attitude, and I'd say it takes a while to get out of that, because your whole world is dedicated around just you and everything that you do. Your entire family is, your entire ecosystem is, and so when it's all about you, you get kind of an ego complex. And so I think professional athletes today don't really live in the real world about how to interact and how to and how to be the best version of themselves around other people. And so I said it took me a while to kind of get out of that and kind of back into it isn't all about me, it's more about other people. So
how many years did you, because you were a professional baseball player, how many years did you play baseball, and then how long do you think it took you to get out of it?
Yeah, I played 6.5 years of pro ball, but of course, I went to college and played in high school and played in Little League. And since I was
Sure.
5 years old, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. And I was able to realize that. So in 1990, I was drafted by the Expos out of Wright State University, and went 2.5 years later. I'm on the 40-man roster with the Expos, knocking on the doorstep, and then I ended up having some arm injuries. I was a right-handed pitcher, so it doesn't take long for a prospect to become a suspect, because you've got lots of different younger athletes coming in behind you, and so if you can't throw, there's other guys that can. And so 6.5 years later and a couple arm surgeries, I kind of decided, I'm probably going to spend more time on the disabled list than I would actually on the field, so it's probably a good time to retire. So that was 1996, and Lauren was being born that year. And
she's your oldest.
My oldest, yeah.
She's your oldest. She's graduating from college this year.
Yeah, that's what I said. It goes quick.
That's nutty.
Yeah, and so I had a plan A. I didn't have a plan B. So it took me a while. I'd say it took me a good 4 years to really kind of get out of that mindset of my entire identity was wrapped up in being a professional baseball player, and this all about me attitude, that the world revolved around me. And it wasn't until probably I went to grad school to get my MBA at Notre Dame, where I began to start kind of opening my eyes to a lot of different things. And then, of course, after I graduated, I bought a business and ran that, and it's kind of been on the business track, and been involved in helping our family continue to grow as a family, to give as a family, and to unite as a family. So that's kind of what I've been doing post, but it takes you a little bit of time, because the world isn't set up, that environment isn't set up for you to have to worry about a lot of the other things. I mean, you don't even carry your own bags, right? I mean, people take them to your hotel room and all that. It's just not reality.
It's
right?
just so different than what the majority of the world ever experiences.
Exactly. So
now, you kind of already indicated that you grew up Catholic, and faith has always been a big part of your life, for at least as long as I've known you. And how does the dichotomy of faith and the world revolving around you and baseball, how does that work? How do you live into your faith while you're trying to be a professional athlete? Because in some ways it feels like they're in opposition of each other. And I imagine for a lot of people out there, they feel like their faith and their business and their life, their dream don't go well together. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a couple of days ago as I was kind of preparing for these comments. And I kind of separate them. There's spirituality and faith, and then there's religion. And I think
Sure.
religion gives us a structure in which to engage, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that certainly early on, during the formation of my faith and the formation of my religion, not only Catholic schools, but my parents were very instrumental in forming that foundation. I would say during, those baseball years, or during those years that was all about me, I still went to church. So it was the religion part of the Catholic Church that kept me structured, right?
Yeah.
And that was important, because I didn't really want to concern myself too much with faith and spirituality, but the religion part, the structure, the going to church, right? The going to reconciliation, those kind of things, Lent and Christmas, and those things kept me grounded in my religion. And I think without that grounding, I think I could have gotten off path. I think it wasn't until later I started having kids and started taking them to church when I really began to start kind of expanding out of that, Catholic religion to more of a Catholic faith or more of a Christian faith type of mentality. And of course now that, I've got, you as a kind of a person that I talk to from a spiritual direction perspective. I've got priests, I've got Lutheran pastors, I've got
you're well diversified.
Or because I believe that there's more to learn, right? There's more aspects to things, and I don't think spirituality and your faith and your relationship with with God is about all driven into a religion,
Oh, what I love about what you're saying there, Mike, is that I think so many people in today's world say I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. But what I hear you saying in your story is that being religious is probably what kept you from going off the rails.
No question. There's no question. And I would tell you that there's a lot of guys that I played with, and the public only hears the 10% of the jerks out there, right?
Right.
I mean, the 90% of the guys that I played with were quality human beings, and I would tell you they'd probably say the exact same thing. It was, I even during baseball, I went to baseball chapel, and baseball chapel is a kind of a non-denominational Christian type of affiliation.
Sure.
But I went there because it was structure, right? It was structure, and it allowed me to create an environment of people that I wanted to be around. And so I think you're exactly right. This well, people say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I don't know how you conduct yourself in that environment, because you need the structure piece, unless you're going to create that structure for yourself. So why do you have a sanctuary? Why do you have Sunday service, at Restoration? Why does the Catholic Church have, because it's structure. People need structure. And I think that is the gateway towards exploring your spirituality, exploring your faith, exploring, your relationship with God. And so having that foundation, I think, is just it's paramount. So you're exactly right. So it's been really forming for me, because the Catholic Church is probably more strict than a lot of other religions. So I learned a lot of good out of those traditions, and what you have to do, and I can't eat meat on Friday and all that kind of stuff. But it's all part of that structure, I think, that helps move you towards a better relationship with God, if you're open to it.
Yeah, because it also sounds like what you were saying is that early on in your walk that you were going more out of discipline, and now you're going more out of desire.
For sure. Yeah.
And how did that? At what point did the Mass switch for you from discipline to desire? Because I think that there are a lot of people who say, I get bored with the Mass, and for me, as someone who studied faith and listened to the Mass through the lens of our historic faith, there's so much there, but people don't know how to pray through it. Was there an aha moment when you were like, this stuff is life changing?
Yeah, I mean, so Matthew Kelly's been a big, what I would call a kind of a spiritual mentor for me. I'm lucky enough to call him a friend, and I started reading Rhythm of Life almost every year, right after about 2005, 2006, and then also the Four Dynamic Signs of a Catholic and those kind of. So I got kind of involved in this better understanding of my Catholic faith, and the Mass was one where you kind of went out of obligation, or you were teaching your kids that it was important to go, and it kind of wasn't until I truly understood from Matthew about how to pray through the Mass. You're exactly right. You pray through the Mass, and I don't do it every time.
Sure.
But I look at, people say, well, the Mass isn't entertaining, and I want to go to a more entertaining church. And that's fine if that's what you need to do. But I don't go to church to be entertained. I go to church to thank, my Creator, and to thank Christ for the life that I have. It's almost like, to me, it's my way of saying thank you, I mean, how many times do you get to, walk over and knock on your mom and dad's door and say, hey, thank you for giving me life, And so I think of church, I think of the Mass every week as my way of being able to say thank you. And then, of course, I go on Wednesday mornings, too, with a group of guys that I've been doing that since 1999. And so I try to get an extra day in throughout the week, because I think I need that reminder. And I think that plays a big role in how I live as a man of faith in my, other things that I do and, in my life, whether it be business or be a dad or show up at home or be a friend or all those different kind of things. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mike. You're one of the busiest guys I know. You've got your hands on a lot of different things. You're constantly traveling, but yet you seem to always make time for this group of guys and for your Wednesday mass. Tell everybody a little bit how that started and kind of where that came, that desire to be in community came out of.
I think you're on mute.
Workday's starting to sound the same.
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Yeah, it was 1997, 1998. I was a new parent. I had two daughters. It might even be Clayton was on the way in 99. And I thought to myself, I'm not, my dad was a fairly, good Catholic dad, but what does it really mean to be a Catholic dad? What does it really mean to raise your kids in a Catholic faith? So I went out and I'm really big on mentors. I'm big on getting advisors, right? And that's why I have a Lutheran pastor as a, spiritual mentor, and I have Tony Miltenberger as a spiritual mentor, and because I need the diversity, and I'm not afraid to ask a question of somebody that might not see the world the way I see it. And so I went out and called on, I would say, guys that are about 10 years older than me that had kids that were older. And I said, look, let's get together. And it was really, I think it was 5 of us at the time. I said, let's get together and let's talk. And I'd love to learn how you guys are raising, children in the Catholic faith or in the Christian faith, and how, what are some of the trials and tribulations? I mean, we talked about everything from spanking your kids to, disciplining to where you send them to school. I mean, it was a wide range of things. And then it really just kind of morphed into more of a group of affiliation and service and community service. So now we're up to 45 guys.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I probably could expand that much faster if I wanted to, but this group of affiliation is important to me. So I want to make sure that whoever we bring into the group would be good for all of us, not just me, right? And so that's why it's building much slower, but still 45, men that are engaged in their Catholic faith. They get weekly emails. We go to mass on Wednesdays. I would say there's a core group of 15 that go pretty much every Wednesday. But, if I would blast out an email and say, hey, I need prayers for, XYZ, I get 45 guys emailing and responding back saying, you got the prayers, where they're on their way, or we need to show up and do some service. It's been a great, evolution of a group. And I don't know where the next evolution of that's going. I really don't. But I like the way it's going now, and it keeps me grounded in who I am. It gives me a lot of humility because I'm not a guy, I think, that gets a lot of truth in a lot of areas of my life. And so I'm just one of the guys in this group. And it serves as a humble reminder that I'm, a father and a husband and a man of God, So
I love that, and I think that you bring up a great point that a lot of times leaders, especially leading organizations like you are, they don't often surrounded by people who are going to tell them the truth or speak some of that courageous, like life truth, not like business truth, but like, check your heart kind of truth. How do you interpret what it means to be a Christian entrepreneur, and how does that play out in your mode of operation?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with the basic golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. And I always learn, do your best, treat others with dignity, be honest, do your best, and treat others with dignity and respect. I mean, that was the core 3 values that my dad had instituted in the Imes company when he was, growing that. And so I've really carried those things over. And I figure if I'm honest with people and I treat them right, I think that is, that is the core of how you interact with people. And then when you go home at night and you look in the mirror and you say, did I do my best today? So I think those three value systems. And so, it starts with that. I think and that's, to me, that's the golden rule. That's what Christ is asking us to do is to interact with people and try to help them become better versions of themselves. And so I don't own a business to make money. I mean, it's nice.
Right.
We don't do all the things that we do. We do them because of what this platform allows us to do. What it allows us to do is live a nice life, but it allows us to employ people that gives them a path to become better versions of themselves. It allows us to give back both monetarily and through other resources to help grow the capacity of other organizations in town where they can do, God's work, right? It's a vehicle in which our family stays united and comes together on like-minded issues, right? It's a platform, so what we do is a platform. So if I always keep that in mind, I think I'm better off. I have above my whiteboard right behind me, you might be able to see, it says a family united forever on the top. And that's our family's vision statement. I really believe that these small little cues that we see every day allow us to keep our mind in the right place. I have a crucifix in my office. I have one in our boardrooms. I have one, anywhere where there's more of a kind of a public space. I don't believe it's my right to go in and tell everybody that they have to have it in their office. But
Sure.
me, I'm not afraid to have a crucifix or a cross or other things because they're small little reminders. We pray before meetings, not every meeting, but we pray before meeting. And I think those are ways to show people that, hey, this is not just about us. It's a much bigger deal what we're dealing with here, and only God can guide us in that endeavor, in my opinion. So
I love that, and I love the way that you're talking about your platform. One of the things that as I listen to you talk, and I know how generous your family has been for so many over the years. How do you, as a Christian man, deal with the pressure that you can't help everyone? Sometimes you have to say no. Obviously, your time is limited anyway. It feels like with the platform that you guys have, that would be a source of angst. So, how do you deal with that kind of, like, you can't help anyone or everyone?
Yeah, and it is true. It comes up, and I'll tell you, Tony, I've been blessed to have the two ends of the spectrum. So my dad, when he thinks about helping others, he always thinks about how do we get the model down where we can scale it, and that scale can help so many other people, right? So he's a scale to the nth degree kind of guy. And so my whole life, I was watching him put models and things together where he can scale, whether he was serving on the board at Chaminade Julienne High School or Aileron or any other nonprofit that he was involved in. He always thought about the model and how he could scale it, right? Mm-hmm. And my mom, on the other end of the spectrum, would go and she'd help one person. And then when she's done with that, she'd walk to the next person and she'd help that person. And then when she's done with that, she'd help. And she never worried about scale, ever. She was a Mother Teresa model, right?
Yeah.
When I'm done helping that person, then I'm going to move to the next person. I'm going to help that person. And I'm not going to worry about scale because I'm making a difference in that one person's life. So I was able to watch those two things play out, and how my mom and dad thought about those differently, how they discussed those things differently, how my mom used to yell at my dad because he was trying to make it more than it needed to be, and my dad yelled at my mom saying, but it's so great it could be bigger, right?
That's awesome.
So there's this, and I don't think you ever get rid of that. I don't think there's an antidote for that anxiety that exists between those two things, because they're both right. They're both right. Jesus went and helped people one-on-one, right? But it wasn't until Peter and Paul when this thing just completely got blown out into, a faith that, and so without Peter and Paul, Christ probably, the Christian message probably doesn't go as far, right? But Christ taught us that help this person model, that Mother Teresa model. So you need both. You need that conflict between the two, because that's how great things happen. That's how great things happen individually, and that's how great organizations are put together to scale and help more people. So I don't think you ever get rid of it, and I think the more that you're comfortable with that anxiety and comfortable with that tension, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to be flexible enough to think about it differently. We got some people in our family that think individually, and we got some people in our family that think much more broadly. And I bring both of them to the table to help me figure out a multitude of issues that we have in our family, because I need the perspective of both. And being able to live in that ambiguity, I think, is important. And there's examples of how that's played out in faith, over the years.
As I listen to you talk, one of the things that keeps coming up over and over again is this idea about working with the family. So just from a purely personal standpoint, I love my family, but working with them sounds really overwhelming. How does that work for you guys? Any tips for people that are like, I want to do ministry or I want to do business with my family? Karen and I joke all the time that we can never work together because we're both that type A personality. We both have control issues. So how do you guys as a family work through that?
A lot of love and a lot of disagreement. But I would say, Tony, the number one thing is, look, whether you and Karen work together or not, whether you screamed at each other or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The commitment to the marriage and the commitment to stay at the table is the most important thing.
Oh, that's good.
And so when our family, when we're all sitting around at the table, everybody's present. For 27 years, we've been having family council meetings twice or three times a year. Everybody keeps showing up. Now, not every time because they've got this going on or that going on, but the commitment to showing up and going through the hardness of being together as a family, because it's not all kumbaya, as you know.
Of course.
But that commitment goes a long way, right? So we can scream and yell at each other and go through training and education and make decisions and all those kind of things. Not everybody's happy with them. But you know what? Next time we have a meeting, everybody's there. Why? Because we're committed to a family united forever. We're committed to this being together. We're committed to our vision. And so once again, I don't wallow in the hardness of it, because it's just hard. I mean, it's only hard. I can do a lot of hard things. So
Yeah.
it's only hard, right? And if I can just get over the hardness of it, the purpose of it is far outweighs, right, the hardness of it. So,
Oh, that's great. Do hard things. Keep showing up. Focus on the vision.
But it's very similar to your faith. Keep showing up. Imagine how faithful I would be if I just stopped going to mass every week.
Right.
It's that showing up piece. It's that commitment piece that's important. And then that discipline and structure that you put in your life, the environment that you surround yourself with, that keeps you moving in a positive direction. And I truly believe that God wants us to become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so for me, that structure is really important. That keep showing up mentality is important. And so that's how I get through it. Let's put it that way. I don't always get it, but it's only hard. It's only hard.
I like that. It's only hard. Like, we do hard things all the time. It's only hard.
All the time.
Do you have any daily routines that you couldn't live without to help you grow in just your balance in terms of like how you show up at work, how you show up as a leader and a father and a husband? Any practical, if someone's like, man, I really want to grow in these areas, what would you say are some of the practical things that you do that have helped you grow?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned two, which was the Wednesday mass, the Wednesday in between. I think other Christian faiths do it really well with Bible studies on Wednesday night and other things like that. So obviously mass, on Sundays. I think, in general, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you creating an environment in your life that is one that helps you move towards where you're going? right? And if it isn't, then you need to kind of get rid of those things in the environment that aren't allowing you to move in that direction, right? But I would say, I get up pretty consistently every morning at 5:30. I'm supposed to be doing this Luke Acts thing with my spiritual mentor Tony Miltenberger that I'm falling a little behind in again.
You're doing great. And actually, we're almost done. We get to go to the Old Testament after this.
If you told me I'd have read all of Paul's letters, I'd say you'd be crazy, but I did it, didn't I? So
that's great.
So doing that, I try to, I have a couple of emails that I subscribe to that come every morning. So I read through those. One is a Catholic reading for the Mass that day. Once in a while, I'll say the Rosary. Usually it's during Lent where I'll get into a novena or a Rosary type thing, and then just spending just a little bit of time in silence. And that's another thing I heard from Matthew Kelly is God talks to you in silence, so be quiet and listen. And it's amazing what comes through your head. And some days I do that 10 minutes, and some days I can sit for an hour, in my office at home and just absorb whatever. And so those are a couple of routines, I guess, in the morning, and that gets my day started. And then I think I'm better. I show up better for other people when I do that. And I do notice that when I don't do that, I do not show up well. And so that's one. Working out, I think, is an important thing, getting that body moving. I try to do that in the morning as well.
You guys have anything with your kids or with Michelle that you do to help keep the faith in the middle of that? I mean, aside from going to Mass together, which I know you guys do.
Usually during the Advent season and the Lenten season, we try to do something. In the Lent, it's a little easier because we all sit around and talk about what we're going to give up, but it ends up being much more than that, as you know.
Of course, yeah.
And then we'll pray before each meal. We'll pray when we're out in the restaurant, and we'll make the sign of the cross and all that kind of stuff. And once again, it's just a small little simple reminders that it's not really about us. It's about something a lot bigger than us. So
I love that. So one of the questions I love to ask all my guests.
We could probably do more, to be honest with you, and I'm open to suggestions. But the kids are starting to live their own life, and I look at it and go, look, we're not with our kids. I got 3 kids in college. All 3 of them are in Catholic schools, and my thinking is, are they going to Mass? And they're going to Mass. So okay. That's one barometer. It's not the entire barometer, but it is a barometer, right? And I think it's interesting that is playing out in their lives as well, right? So that's an important thing for us. So
it's a great indicator. No way. I mean, like you said, it kept you from going off the rails, and I know as a parent that I pray that faith will keep my kids from going off the rails, in the same way.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I love to ask all my guests is if you could look back and give your younger self a piece of advice. You're looking at young Mike, maybe right before you get drafted to the Expos. You're living your best life there, and your dreams are all in front of you. What's one piece of advice looking back that you would tell yourself now?
Well, just one. I really kind of have 3.
Hit them all then. I love it.
Yeah. So one is don't take yourself so seriously. Right? I mean, things happen. You trip and fall a lot. Don't think you're the only one in the world that's ever tripped and fall. Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't think the entire world revolves around you. You're not the only one that's given up a home run ball. That kind of thing. Number 2 would be that be patient. Things come in God's time, not your time. We try to rush things. Sorry, I got this stuff going on. These kids, they try to rush things, and I think when you try to rush things, you don't allow for things to come, because what happens later in life is so much greater than what can happen, in that span of things. And then I probably just lost my other one, but I'll think of it. I'll tell you. But I think
perfect, and we'll include it in the show notes. We'll also include in there a link to some of Matthew Kelly's stuff. If anybody wants to read some of his books, I've read a couple, and they're phenomenal books.
Yeah.
Not just for Catholics, but for all Christians, really.
Yeah.
He's got a great view on life and all that stuff. Mike, if anybody wanted to kind of see what you're doing now or follow up with you, is there a way that we recommend people get in contact with you? Or
well, I'm more of a LinkedIn user than anybody, and
Sure.
And so I post a few things, not much, but that's usually where I'm at. Otherwise, I'm not too social in that spectrum. So
that's all right. It's your intentionality, because you want to be intentional about the people you're around.
Emmanuel, you can see me at Emmanuel Catholic Church every Wednesday morning at 7:30.
Perfect. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my conversation with Mike. I hope you found it as life-giving as I did. In order to stay in contact with the show, the best thing that you can do is subscribe wherever it is you listen to podcasts. I'd also love it if you could leave a review for us to help others find the conversation. Maybe even share this episode with somebody who might need to hear some of the things that Mike had to say. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your thoughts, your comments, all the kind words. It is such an honor to serve you as we continue to grow together in what it means to reclaim the balance of faith and life.
Like what you heard? Please take a minute to rate and share so others like you can find good practices for faith and life.